All right, now that you've watched the video, I'm going to kind of address the CER. You are allowed to use your notes, your ISN, any information. Remember, a CER stands for Claim, Evidence, Reasoning. Okay, so let's go ahead and spend a couple of seconds explaining what a CER is. So a CER is a tool for writing a scientific explanation. For instance, the C stands for claim. That's a conclusion about a problem. Evidence is the scientific data that is appropriate and sufficient to support the claim. And reasoning is a justification that shows how the data counts as evidence to support the claim and also includes appropriate scientific principles. So for instance, if I was going to give you this CER, the question, is a rock alive? And your claim, I claim that a rock is not alive. Your evidence, rock is not made out of cells, it does not reproduce, it does not maintain homeostasis, it does not respond to stimuli. My reasoning, rocks are made of minerals, not cells. Minerals are not organic. Rocks undergo weathering and erosion and can break apart. But that is not the same thing as sexual or asexual reproduction. A rock does not have parents. Rocks do not need to maintain homeostasis because there is not an internal environment to maintain, and then rocks don't respond to stimuli. If you notice in the green, I'm kind of taking the exact information or the evidence pieces and I'm writing it into my reasoning. Does that make sense? I hope it does. Basically, your reasoning is a broader, expansive set of information that kind of explains the evidence. Let's go ahead and look at another one. So in this one, I have the question, which brother ate the raspberries? And this is kind of the background. I left two brothers named Orville and Wilbur in a room where a container of raspberries was sitting on a table. No one else was in the room. When I returned to the room, almost all of the raspberries were gone from the container. Wilbur said, I didn't eat them. Then he blushed. Orville didn't say anything, but he looked sideways at his brother and he grinned a little. There were red stains on Wilbur's hands and he had some dark objects stuck between his teeth when I saw when he said he didn't eat the berries. Tell which brother you think probably ate the berries and why, and you're going to use that CER format. And so claim, I think that Wilbur ate the berries. Evidence, stains on the hands, and your reasoning, Wilbur picked up the berry when he got juice on his hands. Evidence, Wilbur blushed. People blush when they get caught. Orville looked at Wilbur and grinned, and Wilbur had some dark stuff in his teeth. The dark object was a raspberry seed. So those are some examples for CERs. So now I'm going to challenge you to go ahead and write your own CER. Let me kind of clarify this a bit more. This is actually a standard that we've covered in science, and this could be something that could be considered an assessment. I don't believe I will be placing this as an assessment, but this may be a hefty point accumulation, if you will, for your assignment or even a lab grade. I haven't decided exactly where I want to go with it yet. What's kind of neat about this CER is that I am giving you a little bit of information. You are going to write for the evidence and the reasoning. And so our question that we are looking at here is it living? I'm giving you 4 images of living and non-living things. Your job is to provide evidence to classify them either as living or non-living. And I've also got some additional questions listed below that I'll have you go ahead and look at in a second. I want you to make sure that you write in complete and full sentences. I want you to think of this as essay quality work. Okay, here are some live links, so when you actually are in your own document, you can click on those links that will take you to the images. This is where you are going to be writing. If you would write your evidence pieces here, you can do bullets, you can do slashes, you can kind of write in a shorthanded form. Your reasoning, however, that is where you have to write in your full and complete sentences. Let's spend some time looking at these kind of areas for your evidence. I want you to make sure that you answer these two things. So from the provided images, what is your evidence that an item is living or non-living? And then from your evidence that, or from the images again, what characteristics would you use to classify the item as living or non-living? So specifically evidence and characteristics that you are listing here. For reasoning, what is your reasoning that an item is living or non-living? Remember, I'm probably going to take my information from my evidence and write it in a formal statement with explanation for my reasoning. Again, the same thing. What characteristics would you use to classify the items as living or non-living? I'm going to take those same pieces of evidence and formally write them into full, complete sentences using an explanation that helps explain. Basically, think about it this way. I should be able to use my scientific evidence and write it in a way that people who are not in our science class would be able to understand why this makes sense for an image being living or not living. After you have looked at all 4 images, you're going to go ahead and you're going to answer these 2 questions. And I want to know, why is it important that we classify items as living or non-living? And how does this help address items we see under the microscope? And then number 2, what would you expect to see when you look at an animal cell versus a plant cell? What would definitely need to be seen with an animal or a plant cell? When you get to your individual images, you will see I've got the image here in color for you. You can take a look at it, and then there's a link here that you'll be able to click, and that will take you back to this top part. So that way I can go between my images and be able to come back to this main portion where I'm writing everything down and have the time to respond there. You are going to be given just the remainder of the hour to complete this. If you happen to finish early, I would definitely make sure that I've got as much evidence and as much reasoning as I possibly have. This is one of those situations where more is better than less, but you also want to make sure that you are done by the end of the hour. If you finish and you believe you are absolutely perfectly awesome, then you can go ahead and you may read quietly with your own book that you brought or with one of the books that I have in the classroom. Otherwise, spend time, make sure that this is fantastic, and then you're going to go back to Google Classroom and mark it as done or turn in, whichever is the correct statement that is utilized for that. You only have today to work on this, so use your time wisely, ladies and gents. You may use your ISN, you may use any information that we have from our website, for instance, any of the things that I've listed on there. You can even use some research online if that's going to help you. I do want to caution you though, this is an individual assignment. You may not work with anyone else. Good luck, and you're going to do fine.